Assalamualaikum, dear students. Let's continue our topic, the interview. It is the second part of this. I have already told you this lesson has been divided in two parts. In the first part, the definition of interview given by different people, well-known writers, authors about the interview in the first part, and second part here is a given the specimen interview of some particular person. We are taking up now this second part. Let's begin. I am a professor who writes novels on Sundays. Umberto Eco is the person, Umberto Eco, whose interview has been published here. So he says, well, I'm a professor who writes novels on Sundays. The following is an extract from an interview of Umberto Eco. This is an extract given below of this person, Umberto Eco, who was a professor. The interviewer is Mukund Padmanabhan from the Hindu. You know, Hindu is a very renowned daily newspaper, and he was Mukund Padmanabhan was from that, representing the Hindu newspaper, and he is the interviewer. Umberto Eco, a professor at the University of Bologna in Italy, had already acquired a formidable reputation as a scholar for his ideas on semiotics, the study of science rather. Well, Umberto Eco, a professor at the University of Bologna in Italy, he was the professor there, had already acquired a formidable, he has acquired this formidable reputation, formidable, inspiring respect, being capable, and so having a reputation as a scholar for his ideas on semiotics. Semiotics is the formation and comprehension of science. The formation and comprehension of science. Science means the study of science. He was he was a scholar for his ideas in that very field. Literary interpretation also, and medieval aesthetics. Medieval aesthetic means general philosophy of beauty during the medieval times. So he was a student of that field also. He turned to writing fiction, and later on he turned to writing fiction means some novels and all that. Literary fiction, academic texts, essays, children's books. These were his specialty of his writing in these fields: literary fiction, academic texts, essays, children's books, newspaper articles. Even he has written. His written output is staggeringly large and wide-ranging. Staggeringly large means to an astonishing or shocking degree, to a greater degree. That was shocking and astonishingly, that was large and wide ranging, his written output. Well, in 1980, he acquired the equivalent of intellectual superstardom with the publication of The Name of the Rose. That is his book, The Name of the Rose. Once it was published, and he rose to the superstardom of intellect. So which sold more than 10 million copies, means almost 1 billion copies of that book were sold. That sold like hotcake, this book. The interview starts begins like this. Mukund Padmanabhan, he is the interviewer, and Umberto Eco is the interviewee. So the interview starts like this. Mukund asks, the English novelist and academic David Lodge once remarked, I can't understand how one man can do all the things he echo does? Means this question asked by Mukund that a great academic or a great English novelist, David Lodge, has remarked about you. And he has asked how I can't understand how one man can do all these things. Things he does. He means the Umberto Eco does. You do. How is it possible that he says, well, I can't understand? This is my question. This is Makan's question. And what is the answer? Umberto Eco answer, maybe I give the impression of doing many things. Maybe that's why he has said like this, that I am giving the impression that I am doing so many things. But in the end, I am convinced I am always doing the same thing. Well, at the end, I am doing the same thing. I am convinced myself that I am doing the same. Okay, which means to explain the same thing. Umberto Eco says, now what is more difficult to explain? It's a bit difficult to explain what I mean to say. I have some philosophical interests. I pursue them through my academic work and my novels. Well, I have some philosophical interests. Means I'm interested in philosophy. I pursue this interest of philosophy through my academic work. While I am pursuing the academic work, I am doing my duty as an academician, and my novels, or whenever I write the novels, and I pursue this philosophical interest. Means through these works I follow my this interest. Even my books for children are about non-violence and peace. I have written the books and all these. Umberto Eco says, well, he has written so many books about the children, and they are all about non-violence and peace. You see, the same bunch of ethical, means these books are a bunch of ethical, the morals, philosophical interests. These are also the philosophical interests. Through these books I follow my philosophical interest. And then I have a secret. What secret? Did you know what will happen if you eliminate the empty space from the universe? This is a philosophical point, that can you answer this question? Can you understand this thing, that if you eliminate, you finish, you just finish the empty spaces from the universe? Means there are so many empty spaces between the different molecules, different atoms, and different things in the universe. If you just fill them, eliminate the empty space in all the atoms, even the atoms have the empty space. If you remove them, if you just you push the solid things very close to each other and remove these things, then the universe will become as big as my fist. According to him, then the most of the things have the empty space larger, and solid things are a bit lesser than that. And once we push them down to fill these gaps, or these empty spaces, then the whole universe become as big as my fist. Similarly, we have a lot of empty space in our lives. Even in our lives, we have empty space. I call them interstices. What I mean by interstices means a space that intervenes between things. Interstices means a space that intervenes between things in our lives. There are so many empty spaces, so these are called interstices. Say you are coming over to my place. For example, you are coming to me to meet me. You are in an elevator, and while you are coming up, elevator, is a kind of a lift which is used to go from the one story of the building to the higher other story of the building. So if you are in that elevator and you are coming up, I am waiting for you. This is interesting. This is an interesting means there is a space, intervening space between you and me, an empty space. I work in empty space, so there is a time to meet. So that is called the empty space. But I work in empty space while waiting for your elevator to come up from the first to the third floor. Once you come from first floor to third floor, there is an empty space, means the time between your beginning to reaching me to reaching him there. So that time I have already written an article, means I have utilized that empty space. I have utilized that time, and I have written an article. He laughs at it while answering the question to Mukund. Mukund. Not everyone can do that, of course. Means it is not everybody's cup of tea. Not everyone can do that. To use that empty space and empty time. Your non-fictional writing, your scholarly work has a certain playful and personal quality about it. One is the fictional writing about the novels and other things, non-fictional writings, and there are your scholarly work. As a scholar, he has written so many books, certain playful and personal quality about it. So in those works, there are found some personal quality. It is a marked departure from a regular academic style. So there is a difference. You have departed. You have departed from your regular academic style, and this is very much clear marked, which is invariably depersonalized and often dry and boring. Which is invariably means always depersonal. This work, your academic style, which is invariably means always depersonalized, that is not personalized, and often dry and boring. So it becomes often dry and boring, becomes monotonous. Have you consciously adopted an informal approach? Question is, have you consciously, knowingly this adopted this informal approach, or is it something that has come naturally to you? Is it, have you consciously, thoughtfully, willingly adopted this approach of which is informal approach? One is the formal, another one is informal, a normal general approach, or is it something that just came naturally to you, or is it has it come to you naturally? This is the question asked with Mohan. Umberto Eco answers. When I presented my first doctoral dissertation in Italy, he was doing his PhD in that university, Italian university, and he presented his dissertation for his PhD. One of the professors said, maybe his guide, one of the professors, who said, scholars learn a lot of a certain subject. Scholars who are doing a lot of business, they can learn so many things on a lot of certain subject. Then they make a lot of false hypotheses. So it is a in the during that learning, they make a lot of false and fake hypotheses. Those are not the real ones, and they are fake hypotheses on certain things they make. Then they correct them, and at the end, then they again they make these hypotheses, then they correct them, and at the end they put the conclusions. At the end of the whole things, all these hypotheses, hypothetical assumptions, are they make certain assumptions, those are false or are not, but at the end of the day, they put the conclusion, they then conclude what they actually have concluded from all this. You, on the contrary, means that professor asked Umberto Eco and said, you, on the contrary, contrary to this set norm, told the story of your research. You have only written this, your research, whole story. You have written how you conducted your research, and how you began and how you ended all these things, and you have done. This is contrary to all the things that so far people did are doing, and even including your trials and errors. So during your writing this your dissertation, you have conducted so many trials, and you might have done so many errors, and you have done again repeated these things and trials and errors. This is the method. Even you have written that in your dissertation, the professor said. Well, at the same time, he recognized I was right. Now Umberto Eco says, my professor at the same time recognized I was right, means my approach was the right. I have done the right thing. I have done this right thing, and went on to publish my dissertation as a book. So he was satisfied with my approach, and he had just appreciated me, and for that purpose, he had just published this dissertation as a book, which meant he appreciated. So it is very clear that his professor appreciated his approach, which was contrary to the earlier things, or what the people have done earlier, or what the scholars are doing. This was quite contrary to that, but this professor accepted it and appreciated it, so it was published as a book. At the point, at that point, at the age of 22, I understood scholarly books should be written the way I had done. So, at that point, I was at the age of 22. I understood this thing. Scholarly books should be written the way I had done means I had applied the right approach. So my method was the right one. So I understood this thing. What was that? By telling the story of the research means whatever research you have conducted, and you should tell the everything from A to Z, from right from the beginning to the end, what you have done, how you have conducted research, by telling the story of that. This is why my essays always have a narrative aspect. That's why my essays have a narrative. They're written in a longer pattern, in a narrative way, so that aspect is found in my essays. And this is why probably, perhaps, I started writing narratives. That's novel. Perhaps it is because of this approach that Umberto Eco has. So he writes this particular type of this literature, that is novels. So late, at the age of 15, means at the age of 15 I began to write novels in narrative, because that was a narrative writing. At the age of 50, more or less around that, I remember that my dear friend Roland Barthes was always frustrated that he was president. He was always president, that he was an essayist and not a novelist. Means he was president. He would like to be a novelist. Actually, he was an essayist. He was writing essays, but he repented. He would like to write novels. He wanted to do creative writing one day or another, but he died before he could do so. Means this was he was always eager to write something creative writing. He would like to write novels, but he wrote always in these essays, so or another, but he died before he could do so. He would have adopted this method of writing, but he died before that. So I never felt this kind of frustration, but this type of frustration was not found in Umberto Eco. I never felt this kind of frustration. I started writing novels by accident. He started writing novels all of a sudden. I had nothing to do one. I have nothing to do one day. Uh, Sorry. I have nothing to do one day, and so I started. No, because there was nothing to do, and so I started writing novels. Novels probably satisfied my taste for narration, because I used the narrative approach, and it was the novels, they satisfied my taste for that narration. That's why I wrote the novels. The interviewer asked Mukund asked this question. Well, talking about novels, from being a famous academic, you went on to becoming spectacularly famous after the publication of The Name of the Rose. You have written 5 novels against many more scholarly works of non-fiction, at least more than 20 of them. But I think this is due for today. Let me finish this topic, this sorry, today's lecture, and let's continue it in the next lecture as well. Till then, Khuda Hafiz.